Hey, welcome to the GitLab Ask Me Anything. I'm Sid, the CEO of GitLab, and this is about answering questions, so feel free to speak up if you have one.
Hey Sid, what do you think about the news of Atlassian killing off Hipchat and Stride?
Yeah, it's kind of a shock to the system. It's big news. I feel sorry for all the people that stayed on Hipchat and that adopted Stride, and I feel a bit sorry for the developers at Atlassian that made those products. Chat is a hard market. It takes with chat, you both got to be on the same tool currently, so it takes two to tango, which means there's it's a classic network effect category where you'll have a few big winners, and apparently Stride wasn't going at a pace that it should. I'm sure Atlassian had good technical reasons, but I always found it a bit interesting that they had lots of usage on Hipchat, and that product then kind of got still and not evolve, and then they introduced something new. But now you have all that additional friction of having people move over. But it might be that Hipchat was really made for on-prem, and they needed something that was more multi-tenant. I remember seeing presentations, I think, about Hipchat storing everything in Elasticsearch as their primary database. Not sure how that turned out. Those users will now have to migrate. Obviously, a lot will be going to Slack, but it's a great opportunity for the open source companies there. GitLab comes bundled with Mattermost, and I'm exchanging messages like a minute ago with Ian Chen, the CEO of Mattermost. They want to make a great importer for Hipchat, but they've been running into trouble with that, and I said, look, if you're running into trouble, maybe do a blog post. He just did that. I'll link it in the here, and maybe a moderator can also link it on YouTube, because you need to be a moderator, I think, to post the URL there. So that's going to happen. It's going to be to make great migration. I really am rooting for like an open source project to win there. Apart from Mattermost, there's two others. There's RocketChat, great people as well, and there's Matrix. And Matrix is interesting because it's federated. So instead of us having all to run the same software to communicate, you can run different pieces of software that will work, kind of like how email works. But yeah, it's a tough market where there hasn't been the breakout open source competitor to take on Slack. So I hope this will be the moment where someone steps up, and I'm rooting a bit for Mattermost because we bundle them with GitLab.
Hey, Sid. John May actually had a question, but he wasn't one of the lucky. Ask it for him. So at Google Next, there was a lot of talk about our partnership with Google. But they also announced their CI offering, Google Cloud Build. He wanted to know, do you see that as complementary or competitive, and how it might impact our relationship with Google?
Yeah, it's not going to impact our relationship. We're not in the business of exclusive partnerships or forcing people to use something. We're not in the business of saying, oh, that's from Microsoft, so we won't use it. We're multi-cloud. We want people to use the best things across different clouds. So GitLab ships with the Web Ide based on the Monaco editor from VS Code, which I use as well. Even though Microsoft also owns GitHub, which is our competitor, we use lots of the open source stuff that GitHub made, and we might even add support for Google Cloud Build. So we'll see. So I think it's cool that Google's releasing something. Everything that makes developers better and offers them more choices is great. I do think developers already had a lot of choices. They could use Circle or Jenkins or Travis, and now also Cloud Build. I think our strength is that everything works out of the box. and I see GitLab CI just getting stronger and stronger with like JUnit tests, artifacts. It's getting better the whole time, so I'm not worried about GitLab CI hurting because of this. And thanks for articulating the question from John. Suri, Simon just chatted that Suri asked, what is your superpower? Oh, that's a hard question. Please, I'm not a super person, so let's not make that. Don't think I think that. I think I'm way better than average in seeing where a market will go. And I had that a few times while I was just reading TechCrunch and thought like, that's interesting. And sometimes it's the obvious things, like Kubernetes. That one was pretty easy to spot, and we bet on Kubernetes really, really early. I think GitLab was one where I saw like, wow, that's interesting. I think that's great. I think that project is in a sweet spot, and that's going to go a long way, and I'm going to do something with it. I also have my big misses sometimes. One of the previous companies, I thought that would be an app store for web apps with unified billing and things like that, and turned out there wasn't going to be one. And Camille, when he said to integrate GitLab CI with GitLab, I said that was not a good thing, because we should have many sharp tools that you could compose instead of this big monolith application. Turns out that was wrong too. It turned out really, really well, and we learned that there's many emergent benefits to having a single application. So sometimes you learn, but I tend to be pretty early in spotting a market trend. In the YouTube chat, someone not working at GitLab, Ali asked why he can't work for GitLab because he's in Iran. So there's different reasons why people are on the exclusion list, and it can be many things. I think in the case of Iran, I think it's because of sanctions, but I'm not sure. We're not commenting on that country by country, so this is a guess from my part. We'd love to hire people everywhere. I think we're now hiring in 250 countries. But yeah, if you're in one of those countries that's on the list of countries we cannot hire people in, that's bad. I had someone in the boardroom yesterday from Japan, big contributor to GitLab, big fan, and Japan is on that list. And I'm sorry, unfortunately, there's all kinds of laws that sometimes prevent us from doing what's right to people. But we have to stay compliant as a company. Clement asks, GitLabbers have options to exercise by their shares. How does that work with you and DC? Just curious. Do you all buy shares, or do you all just grant them to yourselves? Well, that's interesting. I never talked about that publicly. When you start a company, the great thing is that like 100% of the company belongs to the co-founders. And then when we raised our A round, by the way, that's a mistake. What you should do when you start a company, you should have vesting in place. So if one of the co-founders leaves after a year, they get only a third of the stock. So there's that they don't get the full allotment of stock, even though they put in only a quarter of the work. So when you start a company, you should split it amongst the co-founders and then have a vesting in place. I recommend just standard 4 years with a 1-year cliff, like we do for everyone. We didn't do that, so not so smart of us, but turned out okay. We were a couple of years in when we raised our A round, and they said, hey, you never had vesting. Let's put you both on a 4-year vesting with a 1-year cliff. And we're like, well, Dimitri already spent 4 years doing this, and I spent years doing this, so that doesn't make sense. So he said, you know what? Dimitri spent 4 years, so he's fully vested. So he gets his part of the shares, he got completely. I still have to vest 1 year, so I'll take a quarter of my stock. but then I want to be on the same vesting schedule as everyone else in the company. So that quarter, I started vesting in, like, when did the transaction close? Like August 15, with a 4-year vesting, 1-year cliff, like everyone else. So I'm still getting that. I'm still vesting that part of the stock. Someone said that's really weird that you're vesting kind of stock in your own company, but I don't think that's weird at all. Suri asked, if GitLab were acquired by an org that doesn't traditionally allow for remote work, would we still be able to work remotely after the acquisition? I don't know. That depends on what the acquirer wants. More likely than not, there would not be the remote work culture that we currently have at GitLab. So that's why we prefer to stay independent, and we're going as fast as we can to try to IPO on November 18, 2020. Because if you get acquired, you always dilute part of your company culture. Now, you also might gain something, but we prefer to stay independent. From the YouTube chat, Valerio asks, hi all, we are using GitLab Community Edition, very spectacular product. There is a way to integrate the Jenkins pipeline build result directly in the merge request tab. We trigger a pipeline every time a merge request is open or you get new pushes. I know that you have other DevOps CI, saw that. Did you have a similar thing for discussions in the merge request? I think what you're looking for, but I might be misinterpreting it, but there's a Jenkins plugin for GitLab, and it should be linked somewhere. I'm sure someone will link it in the YouTube chat. And then if you use that plugin, Jenkins works totally fine with GitLab. So anytime you push new code, it gets sent out to Jenkins, and then the commit status API is used to show the result. Nadia asks, what's the best question a candidate has ever asked you while you were interviewing? And Nadia, feel free to speak up if you're in this call instead of chatting. But there's so many great questions. I like it when they found something in the handbook that isn't consistent. So I love those. I love questions about like where they see something in the market happening and they ask for feedback about that, especially if it's like not a super obvious thing. I love it if they ask the questions that are just super obvious, like how are you going to be best in class in 10 different product categories? Like, yes, you should be worried about that. And we're worried about that. But we're going to get there because it's not just us. It's co-creation with our users.
Great answer. Thanks, Sid.
Thanks, Nadia, for asking.
Hey, Sid, I've got a question from Emily in Slack, which is, what are, she was, again, not lucky enough to join this Google Hangout. But the question is, what are some of the things you hope people get out of this year's summit, or this month's summit almost? It's August soon.
Yeah, it's going to be in a month. What I hope, the goal of the summit is to get to know each other better. And both on a personal level and on a professional level. And that's the goal, to add some depth to the relationship. And normally while we work, we try to work asynchronous. It's a bit, dare I say it, transactional. Like you ask a question, you get an answer. You work like that. You try to get results and stay efficient. The summit is a time where we have a week, we don't have anything to accomplish, and we can just spend time together and to get to know each other better. Now, hopefully we don't only do that at the summit, we also do it throughout the week in our company call, talking about life outside of works with coffee chats and in all kinds of other things. But the summit is an environment that is very conducive to it, and hang out together, going to excursions, doing the user-generated content sessions, which are mostly about, well, maybe not they're maybe about work, but not about specific work things. Like last year, the most popular sessions was how to prevent burnout and how to motivate yourself. Like those kind of like broad topics, I think are great to bring some depth to the relationship. In the end, you want to work with a collection of people, not a collection of robots, and to realize we're all people and not robots. The summit certainly helps. Suri asked, what did you eat for dinner last night? It was the pork chop, Suri. It was in a thing called Salt. Karen, my wife, wanted to go out for dinner and proposed to eat downstairs, where we can get food from International Smoke, which is a great restaurant. But I was like, let's go for a walk. The walk was 1 block, which was great because it's super cold outside, and I didn't bring a jacket.
Hey, Sid. While we're on the food topic, I'll bring it up. I recently read an article, and now that we're I'm assuming, as we are a global company, I read that peanut butter and jelly is not a really big thing around the world. And I was wondering if you've ever embraced this wonderful combination, or if you have a go-to snack that you like better.
Yeah, I think I use peanut butter and jelly to say how good GitLab goes along with Kubernetes. On the day of the GKE on-prem announcement, I have done peanut butter and jelly, and I'm from the Netherlands, so we got something else. You can do peanut butter jelly, but you can add chocolate sprinkles on top. And if you're not into chocolate sprinkles, like, it's a legitimate way in the Netherlands to eat chocolate for breakfast, which is amazing. So, if you're having it with my wife, make sure you bring the dark chocolate sprinkles and not the cacao fantasy ones that don't contain a lot of cacao at all.
Thanks, Sid.
From the YouTube chat, Connor Bradley, with my CMO hat on, can you share some of my insights on combating market awareness problems over the next period? So one of the big problems that we have at GitLab is that most of the world doesn't know who we are, doesn't know we exist. So that's a problem. Then if they know we exist, they are like, yeah, I think it's version control, but maybe a bit of CI. Instead of that, we're making a single application for the whole DevOps lifecycle, all the way from planning something to monitoring it, including a container registry and release management and all those things. So that is a story we need to tell. I think what really helped was GitHub getting acquired and people looking at like, okay, after GitHub, what's next? I think we put ourselves on the radar as like the next thing. Now we're going to build on that, and we'll do that in many, many different forms. The content team is going to produce 5 articles a week with interviews with experts, which I think will be really interesting. We're going to up our spend on things like advertising and things that work. We're getting better at attributing our marketing efforts. So lots of things happening over the next couple of weeks and months to increase that. But it's also up to all of you to tell everyone and to have that story ready every time you meet someone. There's a YouTube chat. I can't totally decipher it. Jogin's waiting for 11.2 when you release it. So we do a monthly release. So things are released on the 22nd of every month. So on August 22nd, we'll release 11.2. Connor asked, my thoughts on how we intend to address the product challenge of when a customer is already using GitLab, yet still unaware of the breadth of features they have paid for. That's a great question. We're going to start a growth marketing team, and they are going to focus on like getting more people into GitLab, and then when they're in GitLab, having them use more features. And one of the things we could consider is called internal advertising, where you set like, hey, we get fair to give to display a message to a user once a month by something they might be interested in. What are like the signals, when should we display that message? Like GitHub now announced a feature, for example, if you have a Docker file, they'll remind you of the CI service, things like that. And then also measure the conversion, like how many people clicked on it and actually did something. So there's going to be a team that's focused on that. But if you have a way to enhance that, of course, please do that too. Mark asks, GitHub was 7.5 billion. Where's GitLab at today? Do you see the GitHub acquisition or positive or negative? So first of all, if you get acquired, the price tends to be a bit higher than like the financial valuation or what you would get in a financing or trade for on the stock exchange. And then they were much bigger than us. Our revenue is in the tens of millions. There was in the hundreds of millions. So there's quite a big difference. Was it a positive or negative? I think it was a win-win-win. I think it was good for GitHub to have that exit. I think it was very smart of Microsoft to buy them, but I also think it was really awesome for us. It put us on the map as the independent DevOps tooling. And I think since more and more companies are going multi-cloud, they want a DevOps tool set that's easy to work with throughout the company, that supports everything they need, where they don't have to spend a lot of time integrating everything, but that is multi-cloud, that is not owned by one of the major cloud vendors, and where they can deploy to any cloud. And we're that, and I think that's a great position to be in the marketplace.
Hey, Sid.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Sid, I was going to ask, I know at GitLab we've done quite a lot of good work in terms of improving our diversity and inclusion over the past year and a half. And I wanted to know if those things that we've done, hiring in more countries and looking up to opening more countries and getting a lot of more people involved in different roles in GitLab, what excites you the most, and what do you think we need to do more work on?
Yeah. I'm excited just about the diversity we already have, both, for example, geographically. It's just like more 40 countries. That's off the charts for a company our size. I think we're hiring people from all kinds of different backgrounds, like not just the tech people, but also people that come from different industries, that have different experiences. I'm very excited. Yesterday, I approved a recruiter focused on Africa, where we're going to do active outreach probably just in Africa, or maybe a bit broader, but the person had a lot of experience in Africa. So I'm really excited about that, where we hire recruiters for specific regions. Now, Nadia is already living in South Africa, but I think she's working a bit too hard, so she could use a bit of support. And I think the active outreach allows us to not just find the people that are super clued into this ecosystem, that send a job application, that have that perfect resume, that have all the buzzwords, but find the people that have the skills, but might not be aware that we even exist. So I think we can get even better people in and more diverse people in if we reach out actively, and I'm super excited that we're doing more of that. Some questions in chat. Oh, no. First, Kyla, you were also speaking up.
Oh, thanks so much. So I just had a question. GitLab has been honored to win the Google Cloud Partner Award for Innovative Developer Solution at Google Next recently. What did receiving this award mean to you personally?
Thanks for that. I think I really appreciate how Google is an amazing partner to us. There were multiple keynotes at the conference where they showed off GitLab on stage and mentioned it. And I'm really honored that they see the potential of GitLab as the tool that will make Kubernetes easier to use. So Kubernetes is the future. It's still it's kind of hard to use today. And like it's all about, you got to understand a lot of concepts, start editing YAML files, things like that. with GitLab, it's just push your code and GitLab takes care of the rest. And they see that potential, and I'm really excited by that, and really honored that they're willing to partner with a small startup.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. I'll handle a few questions in chat. We got 3 minutes, so I'll try to keep it brief. How do you handle to sleep well at night with so many things in your head? Well, first of all, you don't know whether I sleep well at night. Now, good thing is I actually do. I go to bed early, and I don't know that right now the company is doing really well. I think I'm worried if our revenue is not up where we want it. Right now it is, so I get to sleep well. Yeah, go to bed early, and you do what you can. You can't influence everything, so try to be very, very mindful of my sphere of influence. Like I can't control partners. I can't control the macroeconomic things. I can't control a lot of things now. As CEO, obviously, I can't control a lot of things in GitLab, but you gotta, in the end, not every decision is yours, and you gotta live with that as well. Priyanka asks, how have you measured your stress levels and burnout? Yeah, well, don't work too long. And then also take vacations. So, for example, this year I went to Peru, went to the Amazon jungle without cell phone coverage. I think the most healthy thing about that is that you discover that you can be out and that everything still goes slightly better than when you were there. So I think that's always really important to recognize that, hey, you hired good people and they'll do a great job independent of you. Joseph asks, what are you passionate about outside of work? So like hobbies, I like skiing and sailing. I also think that one of the biggest problems in the world is discrimination based on nationality. I think we all kind of got a bit used to it, where if you have a different passport, it's okay to have different rights. I think it's not okay. I'm trying to get some fixes in. But that's kind of a bigger project. What book are you reading right now? Someone at GitLab recommended to read Behind the Cloud from Mark Benioff from Salesforce. Next book is probably going to be The Phoenix Project, which a DevOps book by Gene Kim. I'm ashamed I haven't read it yet, so gotta fix that. What kind of animal would I ride into battle? A lion, because I was born August 3. I'm gonna go on safari before our company summit. And I think that's it. We're at 29 minutes. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.